For the attention of all Skywarn spotters, at the request of the National Weather Service, we have been requested to bring up a net, so please grab your gear and head to your designated locations. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. In this episode, yep, you guessed it, we're talking about Skywarn. We're going to be talking about the Sioux Empire Amateur Radio Club in our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight. We're talking about some upcoming events, contests, and some Hamfests for the next 2 weeks, and wrap it all up with some news from around the hobby. So, stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. My name is Curtis, my call sign is Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike, and I am your host for this podcast. This podcast is released every Thursday morning. You can find all the links that we're going to be talking about, as well as some additional information about the topic of today in the show notes at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/46. That's the number 46. You can find my Facebook page at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I also have a Facebook group where we can talk a little bit better, have some more conversations. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio. So please go and like my page and go and join the group so we can have a little bit better interaction than we have with just the page. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/everythinghamradio and on Twitter at K5CLM. So, if you haven't guessed, we're talking about Skywarn today. And yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and get right into it. What do you think? So, Skywarn is a little bit different than other emergency organizations in the amateur radio, such as ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Services, which is under the ARRL, and RACES, which is Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Services, well, I believe off the top of my head here, which is under FEMA. Skywarn is under the National Weather Service. And what makes Skywarn different from ARES or RACES is it's really not so much of a, and I'm doing air quote here, a club type organization. And you don't even have to be an amateur radio operator to be a Skywarn spotter. Like I said, it is under the National Weather Service, and they actually started it in the late 1960s, but it really didn't take off until the mid 1970s. And since then, it has grown to have between 350,000 to 400,000 trained spotters. That is a lot of spotters, and it continues to grow every year. Now, Skywarn spotters are basically the general public's first line of defense when it comes to Mother Nature, right? Because even though we have these high-tech radar systems and stuff like that, those radar systems are really limited to what they can see. I mean, unless you actually have a radar station, like one of those remote radar stations really close to a thunderstorm, they're not going to see the lower elevations. You know, I'm sure that you've probably seen, like, for example, on there is a series on, I want to say either National Geographic or the Weather Channel, if you have satellite TV or cable, that's called, I think it's called Storm Chasers or something like that. And they actually have a mobile radar. And I'm sure you've probably seen pictures of stuff like that. You know, it's this big old radar thing that's this big old, like, radar looking dish type thing that has a cone on the front of it, and it's mounted on the back of this big truck, right? Well, you can, if you have one of those, great. But most people don't have access to stuff like that. You know, that's for stuff like research and weather research, or TV stations. We actually have a local TV station here that has a truck-mounted radar station, and it's actually kind of cool. It's on like a, I want to say like a F-350 or a Dodge 3500 or something like that. But most people don't have access to those, and most people just have um, the radars that are mounted permanently at like the weather service or at some airport or something like that is what most people only have access to. Well, because of the takeoff angle of those radar beams, after about 3 or 4 miles or so, you're looking at like 10,000 feet or 5,000 feet or something like that. So you really can't see the ground. So Skywarn spotters are very important when it comes to ground level events. Now, I'm sure that you've seen your local weather station. When you have some kind of storm coming up, or if you're unlucky enough to live in Tornado Alley where there's a lot of tornadoes, I'm sure you've seen the little symbols that they put on radars that show the rotation and the difference in the wind. The wind direction and the speed and stuff like that. I'm sure you've probably seen that. Well, those indicators are up, 10, 15,000 feet most of the time. So unless you actually have a spotter, a trained spotter, well, then I'm going to actually go a little bit further and say just a spotter in general. It doesn't have to necessarily be a quote trained spotter. It helps, yes, because a lot of times, especially in my line of work as a 911 dispatcher, a lot of times the general public will call in and say, "Oh my God, there's a tornado," when it was really just some scud cloud, or maybe it was a funnel cloud that didn't come down, but it wasn't a full-blown tornado. But anyways, what I'm getting at is unless you have ground level spotters, and more than likely two or more, you're not going to get those accurate beforehand or during event notifications of a tornado or something along those lines. So, another thing that I get asked a lot is, are Skywarn personnel storm chasers like I saw in the movie Twister? Well, no, we're not. Skywarn spotters are not storm chasers. Now, there's basically three different categories that I think storm chasers fall into. The first category are actual meteorologists that are doing research. And like I mentioned before, there is a program on, like I said, either Nat Geo or the Weather Channel that have those type of storm chasers, and typically they have the funding, and they have the mobile radar, and they'll have the cameras and stuff like that. Okay, the second category of storm chasers are people that try and get great video or great pictures to sell to the news media. Now, there on the other side of this thing is maybe they actually work for a news media outlet. Here in DFW we have several quote storm tracking vehicles that have built-in cameras, and they have all the video switching and stuff like that to set up a remote interview type thing that's built into like a Ford Explorer. And one of them, Channel 11 on CBS, actually has two of these things, and they have like little GoPro cameras that are mounted in the along the one of the front windows, that a person in the passenger seat can be doing like a live broadcast from. And then in the back they have a camera operator or an engineer type person that is sitting there looking at several screens, looking at a radar screen and a camera output screen and stuff like that, and doing all of the video mixing and stuff, and sending it back to the news station to put it out over the air. And like I said, they have two of these. And then there's another one, Channel 5, which is, I believe it's NBC, just came out with a brand new mobile radar. And it's mounted on like a F350 or a Dodge 3500 or something like that frame, or 4500 or something like that. It's more of a pickup style than a big truck style. But anyways, that's the second group. The third group are just the thrill seekers, and these are the people that can get everybody in trouble or themselves in trouble. They might not know exactly where to go if they have a tornado barreling down on them, or they might not know exactly which direction to run, or which direction to look to see the best picture, and they can put other train spotters in jeopardy, and we actually had one of those several years ago. I want to say back in the storm season of 2014, I believe, one of the well-known um, professional storm chasers um, got trapped by a tornado because he was trying to save some people that were just thrill seekers, they weren't trained, they were just out looking, basically general public type thing. Skywarn, on the other hand, is not any of these. They typically stay close to home, or at the very least in their own county, or maybe with a stretch, a surrounding county. Typically, they'll have like maybe assigned spots, or maybe they'll spot from home if they have a good vantage point. Like at my house, I sit up on top of a hill, and I can see like 270 degrees around me, the skyline for 15 miles. So I have this great view from my house, which actually is really awesome. I don't have to get out my truck anymore. I don't have to go out in the rain. I can sit out on my back porch or my front porch and spot from the comfort of my own home, basically. And I'm close enough where I can hit the repeater with just a handheld too, so that makes it even better. But Skywarn personnel typically stay close to home. And like I said, they'll go to a designated spot, or maybe if there's a storm that's coming through just half of the county or something like that, and they live on the opposite half, maybe they'll go and try to get a good vantage point of a storm that's further east. But typically they stay close to home, and they only cover their county that they live in typically. They won't go into a neighboring county because they have their own Skywarn spotters. And each county is part of the National Weather Service region that reports to it. So we actually talk directly to the National Weather Service. And this is really neat because a lot of times you can get, you can talk to one of the ham operators that are at the weather service that are standing right next to the weather service meteorologist and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Um, maybe I'm seeing some rotation in west of me, and I'm at such and such a location. They can relay that immediately to the meteorologist, tell them where they are. They can look on the radar and say, okay, I'm seeing, they're seeing low level rotation here. I'm kind of seeing, maybe we ought to keep an eye on this. So we work together in getting information put out to the general public and things like that. And then on the flip side of that, maybe the meteorologists are seeing something on radar that they want a closer perspective on, so they can go to their ham operators station in the National Weather Service there and say, hey, get a hold of this county, see if they have a spotter in this area, and ask them what they see. Maybe they see some high level rotation, they want to know what's a little lower. So they can call up whatever county it is and say, hey, do you have a spotter in this area? We're seeing high level rotation. Are y'all seeing anything low level? So being how the Weather Service and the Skywarn personnel, excuse me, sorry about that, got a chip caught in my throat. Um, anyways, I like totally forgot what I was saying here. You can see how the Skywarn spotters in the field and the National Weather Service work together kind of hand in hand. So it works out great for everybody. So, what if you're not a ham? Can you be a spotter as well? Yes, actually, you can. As long as you have some mode of communication, whether that be phone or email or something like that, you can be a spotter. There, you can be a spotter. You can be a police officer or a firefighter, maybe a EMS personnel, a dispatcher like me, public works, people that work with hospitals and schools and churches, nursing homes, even just Joe Blow off of the, sitting on his back porch or something like that. As long as he has some way to contact the National Weather Service, he can be a spotter. Now, granted, that person needs to have some kind of training as well, and training can be found really easily. It's typically done on an annual basis. Um, and what my Skywarn team requires um, is that you uh, take basically the Skywarn class every 2 years in order to stay active. Because granted, a lot of the information is the same, but you need to stay up on it. And Granted, if you're doing it quite a bit, then you're going to stay up on it, but still you need to be trained on it, I think, at least every 2 years. So there is a link in the show notes where you can go to locate a class. Basically, it takes you to the National Weather Service website. You click on your state, and then you click on your county, and it gives you a list of all the upcoming trainings. And typically, they're given starting in like January. At least here in Texas, they start in January and go up until I think like the last one's in I want to say April, maybe May, something like that. Um, there is some weather services I've seen that you can actually take the training online and do it. I wish they would do that here because that would be so much easier for me since I typically work whenever my local training is. Um, but yeah, there's several different ways. So check out that link, the National Weather Service, or go to your local National Weather Service page to find out when the training is going to be in your area. So, what really does training consist of? Well, there's like five basic things that it consists of. Basic of thunderstorm development. What does it take to build a thunderstorm? You need the inflow. You need instability in the air. You need moisture. All these things you need before a thunderstorm can develop. The fundamental of storm structure, identifying potential severe weather features like wall clouds or um, roll clouds or um, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think of it right off the top of my head. Of course, funnels, stuff like that. Information to report and how to report it. If you're a amateur radio operator, you can do it on a net, but you're typically they're only looking for certain criteria. Things like wind over 45 miles an hour, dime size hail, heavy rain or something like that. Your local area will tell you what really they want as far as information wise. And of course, basic severe weather safety. Which direction do you go when you see a tornado? What direction should you be looking at from? Stuff like that. Basically, when you're looking at a tornado, if you, at least here in the northern hemisphere, if you are um, typically, if you are northeast of the storm where the tornado is going to form at, you're not going to see a whole lot. If you are northwest, you're definitely not going to see anything but rain. If you are to the west of it, you're going to be seeing the back side of it, so you're really not going to see a whole lot as well. If you are to the southeast of the storm, where the tornado forms, basically where the wall cloud is, you're going to have the best view. So all these different things are taught in the Skywarn school. Different classes, different teachers are better, of course, just like any other class. But you know, those are basically the five things that you're going to learn in the class. Um, there's more than 10,000 severe thunderstorms every year that are here in the U.S. Whether that be from Texas up to New Mexico to North Dakota, and from California over up to Maine. There's storms all over the place. Each one of them are different. In the south and up through the Central Plains, you're going to have tornadoes are going to be your major threat. Along your eastern seaboard, you're going to have hurricanes are going to be your major threat. Of course, with hurricanes comes tornadoes as well. Um, when you get things like up in New York and Michigan and Wisconsin, up along the northern states, blizzards could be your major thing. Um, on the on the west coast along California, it may be earthquakes are the major thing. Well, you're not going to really do a whole lot with Skywarn and earthquakes, but you will do it with races. But all these different things, all these different areas have their own types of severe weather, and what Skywarn is really used for. Um, Being here in Texas, the primary thing is thunderstorms. We're on the very southern edge of Tornado Alley, so we do have the occasional tornadoes, and I've actually seen quite a few of them in my tenure as a Skywarn spotter. We had a major one that went through downtown Fort Worth, and I was actually able to see it. It was like a F4, F5, something like that. We actually had one that went right over my house where I used to live. It hit my neighbor's house behind me, and I lived in a valley, and it kind of basically jumped over me, jumped over my house, and hit the house on the other side of me too. So it's it's a very interesting thing Skywarn spotting is. So that pretty much sums up what Skywarn is, okay? It's a very fun activity. It can be very dangerous as well, um, but it's a major part of amateur radio. And if you are an amateur radio operator and you have not tried Skywarn, definitely check out possibly taking the classes. It really helps. It really helps you to understand what the clouds are doing when you see a thunderstorm come in. So I definitely highly recommend taking a Skywarn class, or at the very least, get with your local Skywarn team and see if you can ride with somebody during a disaster or something like that. If you have a neighbor that lives close and they're a Skywarn spotter, ride with them, check it out, see what you see, and maybe you get the bug. Okay, and last but definitely not least, on Skywarn, the 2016 Skywarn Recognition Day is coming up really soon. This episode will come out on the 1st of December, and Skywarn Day this year is on December the 3rd. It'll go from 0 hours to 2400 hours Zulu time on December the 3rd, 2016. Skywarn Recognition Day was developed in 1999 by the National Weather Service and the Amateur Radio Relay League. It celebrates the contributions that Skywarn volunteers make to the National Weather Service mission, the protection of life and property. Amateur radio operators comprise a large percentage of the Skywarn volunteers across the country. The amateur radio operators also provide vital communications between the National Weather Service and emergency management if normal communications become inoperative. During the Skywarn special event, operators will visit National Weather Service offices and contact other radio operators across the world. We're actually having one here at our local the DFW Weather National Weather Service office. We are one of the offices that are going to have it. There are several across the country. Um, Unfortunately, I won't be able to go up to there and work on the station because it's only those that volunteer there at the Weather Service that actually going to be able to run the station. But you can make contact with Weather Service stations during this contest, and I think one of the goals actually is for the each office to contact each other office. I think is one of the unofficial goals of the event as well. So if you are going to be around December the 3rd, which is on the first Saturday of December, from 0 hours to 2400 hours Zulu time, hop on HF and try to make some weather service contacts. So that about wraps it up for this episode on our Tech Spotlight. Let's go ahead and talk about the Sioux Empire Amateur Radio Club in our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight. Okay, so for our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight today, we're going to be talking about the Sioux Empire Amateur Radio Club in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You can find their website at www.w0zwy.org. That's Whiskey Zero Zulu Whiskey Yankee.org. They're also on Facebook at facebook.com/W0ZWY. And their club call sign, of course, you guessed it, W0ZWY. So head on over, you can check that out. The links are in the show notes of today's episode, so you can go directly there. Their meetings are on the first Tuesday of each month at 7:30 p.m. at the Minnehaha County Emergency Management Building at 608 Sigler Avenue in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They have 3 repeaters. They have the 146.895 repeater. It has a PL tone of 146.2, and it's located in Sioux Falls, South Carolina. It has multiple receivers. I'm not sure different frequencies or what exactly that is. That's what it says on their website. They have a 444.2 repeater, has a PL tone of 82.5, also located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Keep on saying South Carolina. That repeater is a fusion repeater, and it also is the IRLP node 7346. They have a 442.75 repeater, also located in Sioux Falls, and that one is a D-Star repeater. And I'm assuming it's probably the call sign the W0ZWY if you are a D-Star user. Okay, and their nets, they have a Tuesday net at 6:45 p.m. It is the 2 meter SEARC net. It is on the 146.895 repeater. Wednesdays at 9 p.m. is the South Dakota Link Net on the 444.825 repeater. On Saturday at 9 a.m. is the SEARC Traders Net on the 444.2 repeater. And on the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. is the SEARES Monthly Net on the 444.2 repeater. This club seems to be fairly active. I couldn't find a whole lot of stuff on their website, but they do have a summer swap meet in July. They don't have next year's date up there yet, but I believe it was on the 19th, I think, of July last year, so probably sometime mid-July. They, do, of course, do field day like most clubs do. They have licensing classes, bike races, walkathons. They do the South Dakota QSO party, so seems like a fairly active club if you are in the area anytime during those nets or on the first Tuesday of the month. Make sure you check them out and drop them a line, say hi. Check out their fusion repeater or their IRLP link of 7346 or their D-Star repeater. If you talk to somebody there, tell them you heard about them on the Everything Ham Radio podcast. All right, so that wraps up this. Let's talk about some upcoming events. What do you think? All right, let's talk about some upcoming events. All the times that I'm going to be mentioned, unless I specify otherwise, are going to be in Zulu time or UTC time. So, here we go. Today, December the 1st, will be the NRAU 10-meter activity contest. From 1800 to 1900 hours will be the CW portion. 1900 to 2000 will be single sideband. 2000 to 2100 will be FM. And 2100 to 2200 will be digital. Tomorrow, December the 2nd, from 1:45 to 2:15 will be the NCCC RTTY Sprint. From 2 to 3:30 will be the QRP Fox Hunt. And from 2:30 to 3 o'clock will be the NCCC Sprint. On December the 2nd, from 2200 hours to December the 4th at 1600 hours, will be the ARRL 160 meter contest. December the 3rd, from 0 hours to 2400 hours, will be the TARA RTTY Melee, something like that. December the 3rd will be the Wake Up QRP Sprint. 4 different segments from 6 to 6:29, 6:30 to 6:59, 7 to 7:29, and 7:30 to 800 hours. Alrighty, December the 3rd, from 1600 hours to December the 4th at 15:59 will be the Tops Activity Contest. December the 4th, from 0 to 2400 hours will be the 10 meter RTTY contest. Also on the 4th, from 1300 to 1600 hours will be the SARL Digital Contest. On December the 6th, from 200 to 400 hours will be the ARS Spartan Sprint. December the 7th, from 2 to 3:30 will be the QRP Fox Hunt. December the 7th, again, from 2:30 to 3 o'clock will be the Phone Fray. And on the 7th, from 1300 to 1400 hours, and from 1900 to 2000 hours, and then followed on the 8th, from 300 to 400 hours, will be the CW Ops Mini CWT test. On the 9th, at 1:45 to 2:15 will be the NCCC RTTY Sprint. And then from 2:30 to 3 o'clock will be the regular NCCC Sprint. From 200 hours to 3:30 will be the QRP Fox Hunt. All three of these will be on December the 9th. On the 11th, from 0 hours to 1200 hours, on the 11th, wait a minute, back up here, hold on, hold the phone, back up, stop, rewind. Okay, let's try this again. December the 10th, from 0 hours to December the 11th at 2400 hours, will be the ARRL 10 meter contest. December the 10th, from 1200 hours to December the 11th at 2400 hours, will be the SKCC Weekend Sprintathon. December the 10th, from 1600 to December the 11th at 15:59 will be the International Naval Contest. And next up, we have the AWA Bruce Kelly 1929 QSO party. Will be on December the 10th from 2300 hours to December the 11th at 2300 hours, followed by the next weekend, I believe, December the 17th from 2300 to December the 18th at 2300. Next up, December the 11th, from 2100 hours to 2259 will be the CQC Great Colorado Snowshoe Run. December the 14th, from 1:30 to 3:30 will be the NAQCC CW Sprint. December the 14th, from 2 to 3:30 will be the QRP Fox Hunt. From 2:30 to 3 on the 14th will be the Phone Fray. And last but definitely not least, we have the CW Ops Mini CWT test on the 14th from 1300 to 1400 and 1900 to 2000 hours, and on the 15th from 3 to 400 hours. All this information was taken from the WA7BNM contest calendar as shown on there. So please, if I made any mistakes, try not to blame it all on me. Okay, so next up we have our Hamfests. Alright, so Hamfest for the next 2 weeks are pretty slim picking, right? We have on the 3rd, which is this Saturday, in Delta, Ohio, is the Fulton County Winterfest. In Ocala, Florida, is the SSRC 2016 Hamfest. And in Mesa, Arizona, is the Superstition Superfest 2016. On the 4th, we have the LCARC Amateur Radio Swap and Hamfest in Madison Heights, Michigan. The next weekend on the 9th is the West Central Florida Section Convention, the Tampa Bay Hamfest in Plant City, Florida. And on the 10th, we have the Pearl City County ARC Hamfest in Poplarville, MS. What is MS? Missouri? No, that's MO. MS, Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi. And last but not least, in Cheltenham, Maryland, is the Santa Fest. All the information from our Hamfest section was taken from the ARRL Hamfest calendar. Alright, so that wraps up that section. We got one more section, and then we're going to wrap up the episode for this week. So, stay tuned. Okay, before we get on to the news for this episode, I want to let everybody know that I've been working on getting some t-shirts for my podcast that y'all can buy. Not only t-shirts, but I'm also working on some other stuff, but t-shirts will definitely, hopefully, be here on time. What I am planning on doing, and I mentioned this, I think, last episode, I'm trying to start my own screen printing business, and working on that, and I've got pretty much everything that I need to do it. But I'm wanting to do a t-shirt. It's going to be a screen printing t-shirt. It'll have a Everything Ham Radio logo on the back, and on the front, if you pre-order it, you will get your call sign and your name on the front for free. I'm planning, hopefully, to possibly have it up where you can pre-order on December the 1st when this episode goes live. So you can go to everythinghamradio.com/store and check that out. That's my plans, anyways. If that happens to change and you get a invalid address or something like that, just go back to the main page or look at the top or something like that, and there'll be a link there to take you to the store. But anyways, like I said, I want to get the shirts. I want to have them pre-ordered by the time this episode goes live, and then they will be shipped out starting somewhere around January 1st or so. So. Going to be looking. I'm thinking about $20 or so for the t-shirts, and that's from medium all the way up through 2X, 3X, 4X, whatever. And going to have different colors you can buy for the shirts as well. So, not exactly sure how I'm going to set it up exactly just yet. I'm probably just going to be, okay, this is the size that I need and this is the color that I want, in like the notes or something like that. So I'm still working uh, on the specifics of how it is all going to work, but I am trying. I am working on it, and I hope to have it up by December the 1st, if not shortly thereafter. So please check out my website. Go to everythinghamradio.com, and see look and see if there's a link there at the top for shop. Um, yeah, so I guess that's about it. So please head on over there, buy a t-shirt, buy Everything Ham Radio t-shirt, and I will be adding other t-shirts as well, other ham radio t-shirts. I got a whole bunch of different designs that I'm working on and trying to get set up. So it'll not only be Everything Ham Radio t-shirts, but it'll be everything ham radio t-shirts. Okay, that was a bad pun. But anyways, and also other stuff too, other stuff other than ham radio stuff. Neat sayings, uh, support police support shirts, just all different kinds of things. So head on over and check that out, and I'll be adding stuff more and more. And if you would like to have a custom shirt designed as well, I would be interested in entertaining you to see what we can work out. So, but as of right now, pre-order Everything Ham Radio t-shirts, um, $20 a piece, and they will ship sometime after January 1st, first part of January there. So, $20 right now. If you pre-order before January 1st, you will get your name and your call sign on the front for free. Anyways, that's about all I have for this announcement. Let's go ahead and move on to the news. So I'm sure all of y'all have heard of Mark Twain, this famous author that we all learned about in school. Well, Mark Twain's birthday special event station has been set, and it's actually halfway over with by the time this episode is released. Members of the ARRL headquarters staff will be on the air as W1T November 28th through December 4th in honor of Mark Twain's 181st birthday. On November 30th, Twain's actual birthday, the Mark Twain House and Museum in Hartford, Connecticut, has granted permission for a special event station to be set up in the front yard of the house from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. Born in Missouri in 1835, Twain lived in Hartford from 1874 to 1891 and wrote many of his greatest works during that time, including The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. We are so excited to have our neighbors of the ARRL with us on Mark Twain's 181st birthday, said Betsy McGuire, manager of Living History at the Mark Twain House and Museum. This is a rare treat for the museum staff, our visitors, and hopefully many amateur operators across the country who make contact with the station. As a lover of science and technology on this day, Samuel Clemens, who definitely approved of a special event station on the grounds of the loveliest home that ever was. W1T activity on November 30th will be exclusively from the Mark Twain House and Museum. All other W1T activity during the week will be conducted from other sites as ARRL staff time permits. All bands and modes will be considered, including satellite operations. A special W1T QSL car will be available to commemorate the events. Complete information is available on the W1T listening at QRZ.com. And there is a link in the show notes of today's episode for that listing. Alright, so in last episode, we talked about Peggy Whitson, KC5ZTV, who is an astronaut who is heading to the International Space Station, or who is now on the International Space Station, I believe. Peggy is the second or this will be her second command for the ISS, and is the only woman to have two commands under her belt. This, according to the ARRL News. New ISS crew members Peggy Whitson, KC5ZTD, Tom Prescott, I guess is how you pronounce that, KG5FYG, and cosmonaut Oleg Novitsky are settling in on board the International Space Station this week. The trio headed into space on November 17th for a 6-month stay. Welcome the expedition of 50 and 51 crew members were Expedition 50 Commander Shane Kimbrough, KE5HOD, and crew members Sergei Razhikov and Andrei Borisenko, who have been on board the complex since October. Whitson, who will turn 57 during the ISS tour, is making her third trip to space. She will become the first woman in command to command the space station twice. Her first tenure as commander was in 2007 when she became the first woman to hold that post. The crew is scheduled to return to Earth next spring. Whitson not only is the oldest woman in space at the age of 56, but she is projected during this mission to once again become the U.S. astronaut logging the most time spent in orbit. All told, she has already spent more than a year of her life in space. By the time she returns to Earth next spring, she'll have 534 days of off-planet time under her belt. That's a long time to be in space. Congratulations to her and to the other astronauts and the cosmonaut that are on the ISS, and hopefully they will have a uneventful trip and be able to talk to quite a few schools. I know they have a big agenda, last I checked, of schools that are lining up to talk to them um, on their mission there. Alright, so next up, if you remember a few episodes ago, back in, I want to say, I believe it was episode number 39 that we talked about Jamboree on the Air. Well, the reports are out. The final report for the Boy Scout of America has released the final report of the 2016 Jamboree on the Air, and the news is good. Participation was up from 2015, despite what the report called terrible propagation. According to the report, 10,761 scouts took part, an increase of more than 50% from a year earlier, and the number of stations filing reports at 267 jumped by 28% from 2015. The record was 271 in 2013, so real close to that record. A number of amateur radio operators was up by 14% to 1,120, although the number of radios reported in use dropped by 25% to 631. Total Jamboree on the Air 2016 contacts remained flat at 8,254. Over the next several months, the BSA National Radio Scouting Committee will review various suggestions to determine improvements that can be made for JOTA 2017. These include concerns over conflicting on-the-air events and the need for better advanced publicity. Thanks to JOTA coordinator Jim Wilson, K5ND. Alright, and last for this episode, we're going to talk about a news story on the ARRL news feed, talking about SOTA. And if you remember right, back in episode number 17, we talked about SOTA, which is Summits on the Air. And basically, this is you go to a mountain summit and you activate it and you make contacts, right? Well, go back to episode number 17 and give a listen to that, and you'll get a whole lot of information on it. You can find that at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/17. So, this news story is SOTA Summit to Summit activation declared a success. The November 19th Summits on the Air Summit to Summit event between Europe and North America is being called a great success. SOTA is a awards program that encourage portable operation in mountainous areas. Despite cold, rainy weather in parts of Europe and just above band just above average band conditions, all activators reported successful and enjoyable experiences. In addition to Europe to North America contacts, some stations logged contact with other parts of the world. One activator was on holiday in the Canary Islands. 3 bands were used for intercontinental contacts, 20, 17, and 15 meters, with most contacts made on 20 meters. The consistency seems to be that from a propagation point of view, 17 meters was the best, said Ed Durant, DD5LP. We even had some reports of chasers from Australia catching some of the European activators via short path. 66 summits had been announced, but 77 were activated. The North America Australian Soda event may take place in 2017. This story is brought to you by the Southgate Amateur Radio News and on the ARRL News feed. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the episode for this week. Again, I want to remind everybody that Everything Ham Radio podcast t-shirts will go on pre-order right around December the 1st. So make sure you check in everythinghamradio.com. Check for that link. I will have something posted on there, some kind of notification. Pre-order now before January 1st, and you will get your call sign and your name printed on the front of the shirt for free. After that, there will be an extra charge. Shirts will be $15, I'm thinking. It may be a little less than that, but it definitely will not be more than that. So head on over to everythinghamradio.com, check out the shopping link up at the top, and get your brand new Everything Ham Radio podcast t-shirts. After January 1st, they will be shipped out, so there will be about a month or so of pre-orders available. So grab it now while you can. I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode, and if you would like to receive emails on when I publish a new blog post or a new podcast episode, you can subscribe to my email list at everythinghamradio.com/subscribe. You will fill out a little form there, click the sign me up button, and you will get an email in your inbox. It might go to the junk folder. I'm not sure how many have gone into the junk folder, but if you don't get it within about 5 minutes or so, make sure you check that junk folder or the spam folder. There will be a link in there that you will need to click on in order to confirm your subscription, because I don't want to be sending emails to you if you don't want to receive them. So make sure you click on that confirm button if you signed up for my email list. Also, if you would like to support this podcast, there are several ways you can do it right now. You can make a one-time donation through PayPal. You can become a monthly contributor through Patreon, which is just $1, $5, $10 per episode contribution automatically taken out every month. Each level will have different things that you will get in return as well. You can also shop on Amazon.com using my affiliate link. I will get a small advertising fee for anything that you or for almost anything that you purchase. And also, don't forget to pre-order your Everything Ham Radio t-shirts. And I will be adding other t-shirts designs as well in the coming future. So make sure you check that out as well. I guess that pretty much wraps it up. Please follow me on Facebook. You can find my page at everythinghamradio.com. Take that back. You can find it at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I also have a group up where we can talk a little bit easier than we can on the page, and everybody can talk amongst ourselves. I wish I would have done a group instead of a page to begin with, but you can find that at Everything Ham Radio. I am way off here. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/Everything Ham Radio. There's also a link, a pinned link at the top of my page, Facebook page, going to the group. Please follow me on YouTube if you prefer that method. You can find that at youtube.com/everythinghamradio. And please follow me on Twitter at K5CLM. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Once again, I want to say thank you for listening. Please share this with your friends and fellow hams. Please give me a honest review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, wherever you're listening to it. Please let me know. Leave a comment below as well. And I guess until next time, this is K5CLM signing out. 73L.